Hello Marvelous viewers, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're talking about creatures from the mist, getting into it, Welcome to Derry. Let's check it out. Just when I think I've seen it all, Welcome to Derry manages to spring up a surprise, and after the eventful 7th episode that has set the stage for the perfect season finale, the teaser for the final episode drops a few more shockers. The first thing that I noticed in the teaser was the ominous sign of the town of Derry covered in what looks like a thick mist. My Stephen King fanboy mind immediately started to join the dots, and the answer seemed obvious enough. We're probably gonna encounter the deadly creatures of the mist. The show has done a great job of exploring the depths of Stephen King's macroverse, and bringing the mist into the fold for the final episode will be the cherry on the cake. So sit tight for this one, as I explore the possibility of Derry witnessing another nightmarish ordeal, and the consequences of that on the cursed town. The Mist Creatures. What are they and where did they come from? Most of you probably know The Mist from Stephen King's novella, or Frank Darabont's incredible 2007 film adaptation. The Mist is a supernatural phenomenon that tears open the very fabric of reality itself. What we see in that story is a dense, suffocating mist that blankets the town of Bridgeton, Maine, and brings with it creatures that shouldn't exist in our dimension. These creatures come from what Stephen King calls the macroverse, an incomprehensible void that exists between worlds. I think it works like the spaces between realities, the gaps in existence where ancient cosmic horrors await. In King's larger multiverse, this void is connected to everything from the Dark Tower to Pennywise itself. The creatures we see in the mist are dimensional entities, things that evolved in an entirely different reality with different laws of physics and different evolutionary pressures. When they cross over into our world, the results are catastrophic. We're talking about everything from giant scorpion flies with membranous wings to massive spiders the size of buses. There's the infamous behemoth, a 300-foot-tall creature that defies comprehension. And then there are the pterodactyl-like creatures called the pterobuzzards, impossibly tall things that dwarf buildings. These creatures represent the unknown, the incomprehensible void where human reason breaks down. Operation Arrowhead, the military mistake that started everything. In Stephen King's The Mist, the creatures are accidentally unleashed by a military operation called Project Arrowhead. I think we can all draw parallels at this point, because Welcome to Derry is setting up something very similar with Operation Precept. Project Arrowhead was a top-secret military experiment conducted at a base in Shaymore, Maine. The government, in its infinite wisdom, was attempting to open a dimensional window to explore the other dimensions. The scientists working on the project believed they could create a controlled gateway, a way to observe and potentially utilize these other realities. Of course, they couldn't control it, and something went wrong. Lightning struck the facility, overloaded the experiment, and created what's known as a thinny, a tear in the fabric of reality where dimensions bleed into each other. The result was the mist, and everything it contained pouring into our world. The dense fog rolled out from the military base, carrying with it creatures from a completely different dimension. This is directly relevant to Welcome to Derry, because we're seeing a nearly identical scenario unfold. General Shaw is running Operation Precept with the explicit goal of locating and weaponizing Pennywise. He's using Dick Halloran's psychic abilities, his shine, to find the 13 cosmic shards that keep Pennywise imprisoned beneath Derry. Now that they've managed to remove one of the 13 shards, the consequences aren't going to be pleasant with the safety net gone. I have a feeling that the removal of the cosmic shard is the reason that Pennywise has woken up prematurely, even after completing his feeding cycle with the Black Spot Massacre. The timeline problem. Why the mist creatures don't belong in the 1960s. Here's something that's been bothering me, and I know it's been bothering you too. The Mist story takes place in 1980, with Project Arrowhead creating the dimensional breach then. But Welcome to Derry is set in the 1960s, specifically focusing on the origins of Pennywise awakening during that era. The timeline doesn't match up. Project Arrowhead hasn't happened yet. The military base in Shaymore, Maine exists, but the experiment that opens the dimensional gateway won't occur for another 20 years. Now, my take on this is that what if Operation Arrowhead isn't the only way to open a dimensional thinny? What if the removal of even one cosmic shard is enough to create a similar breach? A localized thinny centered on Derry, where the barriers between realities become paper thin. The creatures pouring through wouldn't necessarily be the exact same species we see in the Mist of 1980, but they would be creatures from the macroverse, drawn to the dimensional weakness like moths to a flame. The mist itself, that visual phenomenon Episode 8's teaser showed us, could be a manifestation of this dimension's instability.
The star that carried the monster had been its cage.
The Cosmic Dagger and Indigenous Protection, weapons we didn't know we had. Now we need to talk about something that could be crucial to the finale, the Cosmic Dagger. According to Daniel's revealed history, the tribe's war chief carved a weapon from the fallen star itself, a cosmic dagger created from the same material that the Galoo fears more than anything. This weapon has been passed down through tribal lines, and it represents the only artifact we've seen that can actually harm or repel the creature. If mist creatures do appear in Episode 8, the indigenous people and the cosmic dagger might be the only real defense available. The military certainly won't be able to stop creatures that exist partially outside human reality. Guns don't work on dimensional entities. The dagger represents a completely different framework of understanding, not military might, but spiritual and cosmic knowledge. The consequences. What happens when Pennywise meets the mist? Well, first, we need to understand that both Pennywise and the mist creatures are products of the macroverse. They're not natural enemies, in any biological sense. They're both cosmic horrors, albeit manifested in different ways. Pennywise is localized, specialized, evolved to prey on human fear within a specific geographic zone. The mist creatures are more general predators, hunting whatever they encounter regardless of its nature. So a direct conflict between them is theoretically possible, but not guaranteed. What's more likely is that they coexist in a state of mutual understanding, or at least mutual tolerance. Pennywise might view the mist creatures as competitors for resources. They're all feeding on fear and human suffering. But there's enough terror and death to go around, so they might not actively war with each other. Instead, we'd see a coordinated nightmare scenario. Pennywise, using its psychic powers, its shape-shifting abilities, and its intimate knowledge of human psychology to manipulate and terrify, while the mist creatures hunt physically. I've seen enough hints of that happening in the brief teaser. The consequences would be catastrophic. A town already traumatized by decades of cyclical Pennywise attacks would suddenly face a two-front nightmare. The extinction event scenario. Is Derry doomed? Here's the question that keeps me up at night, and I think it's what the show is building toward. Are we watching the setup for an actual extinction-level event for Derry? If the dimensional barriers completely collapse, if multiple mist creatures pour through, if the military interference actually accelerates the breakdown rather than containing it, then yes, Derry as we know it could simply cease to exist. The show has been building toward this feeling of inevitability. Dick Halloran realizes the horror of what he's been forced to participate in. Even Hank, despite being manipulated by the military, understands that something catastrophic is coming. The finale might be structured as watching the townspeople attempt to prevent total annihilation, knowing full well that they're already losing. An extinction event for Derry would mean that the Losers Club, as depicted in the original It novel set in the 1980s, might be fighting against something far worse than just Pennywise. They'd be fighting the consequences of military hubris, indigenous genocide, and cosmic forces that should have remained sealed. How to save Derry, the role of the cosmic dagger, and indigenous knowledge. Despite the nightmarish scenario we're painting, there might actually be a path to salvation, and it lies with the indigenous people of Derry and the cosmic knowledge they've maintained since the falling star. If mist creatures do appear, stopping them might require a coordinated effort between the military, providing tactical support and distraction, while the indigenous people work to reseal the dimensional breach. The military can't kill the creatures, but they can buy time. They can evacuate civilians to safe zones. None of this can actually solve the problem, but it might give the Shakapiwa and whoever else understands the cosmic truth enough time to work. The real solution probably involves two simultaneous actions. First, the cosmic dagger needs to be used to strengthen the dimensional barriers, to weaken the thinny that's been opened. Second, someone needs to recover the removed cosmic shard, or at minimum, re-establish the circuit of the 13. This is where the narrative gets really interesting, because the military is holding the shard. Either it needs to be stolen back, or the military leadership, specifically General Shaw, needs to understand the magnitude of the threat and voluntarily return it. Episode 8 might show us which philosophy actually works when reality itself starts to break apart.
Oh my, how I wish to cry!
The Episode 8 theory, putting it all together. Okay, so here's my complete theory for what's coming in the Winterfire finale. The dimensional barriers around Derry don't just weaken, they actively rupture. A thinny opens up, massive in scale, maybe centered around the well house on Neibold Street where Pennywise's true lair is located. Mist creatures begin crossing through, attracted by the dimensional instability and the psychic scream of Pennywise waking and feeding. The military mobilizes, but as we've discussed, they're completely ineffective. We might see some genuinely horrifying moments of military personnel being slaughtered by creatures that operate on completely different physical principles. The indigenous people recognize what's happening because they understand the cosmic framework. They recover the cosmic dagger and attempt a ritual to reseal the breach, but they can't do it alone. They need time, protection, and possibly someone to sacrifice themselves to reinforce the cosmic perimeter. The climax of Episode 8 might involve characters we've come to care about making impossible choices, giving their lives to buy time for the ritual, or choosing to evacuate civilians, knowing that the entire town is being consumed. The episode probably ends on a note of partial victory and massive loss. The dimensional breach is resealed, preventing total extinction, but hundreds are dead. The town is traumatized. The military's involvement is exposed, creating massive political fallout, and we're left with the knowledge that Pennywise is still there, still imprisoned, still waiting. And the Losers Club, another 20 years into the future, will have to deal with the consequences of this night when they discover what Pennywise really is. Marvelous verdict. Why this theory makes narrative sense. I know this is a bold theory, and it requires accepting that Welcome to Derry is willing to introduce elements from multiple Stephen King stories into a single timeline. But honestly, the show has already been doing that. It's been directly referencing the macroverse, the Dark Tower, Maturin, and cosmic shards. The infrastructure for connecting these stories is already there. The narrative has been building towards some kind of extinction-level event all season. What makes the mist creature theory so compelling is that it would represent the culmination of every theme the show has been exploring. Will it actually happen? We'll find out when Episode 8 drops on December 14th. But whether the mist creature appears or not, I'm absolutely convinced that the finale is going to be devastating. Let's not forget that the series intends to keep going with future seasons, and what better way to keep the fans guessing than a remarkable open-ended finale? Do let me know in the comments below what you think about this theory, and share your thoughts on the potential narrative for the grand finale. And as always, if you like our content, don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye, Marvelous viewers!